Show us your fucking hands now.
Stand up.
Stand up. Stand up.
Stand up now. Stand up.
Stand the fuck up.
63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard. What are you doing, man?
Hey, we're talking all this.
Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad. I ain't nothing. Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him.
All right.
He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna get
I ain't
you
gonna
here
do
in a
nothing. I ain't running
second.
away. You can do whatever you want.
Disclaimer. In this story, we will be discussing the murder of 3 young boys and domestic violence. This chapter may be triggering for some listeners. Anyone discussed should be presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. This will be the only warning, so please do not listen if you are sensitive to this topic. Chad Christopher Doerman is a 32-year-old man from Claremont County, Ohio. He is married to a woman named Laura, age 34. He has a teenage stepdaughter named Alexis, who is 13 years old, and Chad and Laura had 3 sons together, Chase, Hunter, and Clayton, who are 3, 4, and 7 years old. The boys were described by friends, family, and neighbors as hilarious. They absolutely loved sports and were loved, and they were sweet little boys. Everyone says that they were completely inseparable. Laura was a stay-at-home mom, and Chad worked full-time as a carpenter and was the breadwinner for the family. They lived in a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in New Richmond, which is a city within Claremont County, with a population as of 2020 for about 2,800 people. It's nestled right along the Ohio River, and in the afternoon of June 15th, which is right before Father's Day weekend, tragedy struck within that community and within the Doerman family. On June 15th, 2023, Chad Doerman got off early from work, and when he got home, he had his wife and his kids join him in the master bedroom to take a nap. At some point, Chad got up, loaded a rifle, and eventually shot his 4-year-old son, Hunter. Chad's wife, Laura, began screaming and yelling for her children to run. So this is confusing to me. I wonder, did Chad tell Laura he was going to murder their sons, causing her to yell and tell the kids to run away? Because just prior to this shooting, Chad's stepdaughter, Alexis, who had been watching TV in the family room, heard a commotion and made her way down to the master bedroom where she witnessed the shooting of little Hunter. So Alexis immediately began to run, but one of the boys, 7-year-old Clayton, ran the wrong way. He ended up running out the back door of the house towards a field, so Alexis ran after him, screaming at him to keep running. But that's when Alexis saw Chad chase after Clayton and witnessed Chad shooting at the little boy. As he ran, Clayton was struck by gunfire, knocking him down to the ground. Chad walked up to the injured boy and shot him 3 more times. He then brought his lifeless body back to the house and laid him on the ground near the driveway. While this is happening, Alexis had turned back and ran into the house where she picked up 3-year-old Chase. She tried to leave the residence with Chase, but as she attempted to flee, Chad had returned to the house. Chad ended up hearing someone crying. Alexis immediately begins running with Chase. So, I don't know if Alexis was hiding with Chase, or if she started crying, or if it was Chase that was crying. Either way, completely understandable that whoever was crying made noise, but very unfortunate that Chad heard this. And anyways, as Alexis approached the road with the 3-year-old in her arms, Chad caught up to her, raised the rifle and pointed the firearm at her head. Chad demanded that she put Chase down. She begged Chad not to shoot her, and she did put Chase down. At this point, Alexis witnessed Chad attempt to shoot Chase in the head. However, the gun did not fire. At this point, Chase ran over to his mother, Laura, who was at the side of the yard attempting to render aid to another one of her sons. So while Chad is attempting to reload his rifle, and once Chase was with his mother, Alexis ran. She proceeded to flee towards the Monroe Township Fire Department. It's so crazy to think of this poor 13-year-old girl and what she went through and is left to deal with for the rest of her life. So Alexis was stopped by a passerby, and she told the person that her father was killing everyone in her home. She continued to flee towards the fire department, and the passerby ended up calling 911. In the 911 call, we heard the woman telling police about her interaction with Alexis.
911, where's your emergency?
There's a girl running down the street saying that her stepfather is killing everyone in her family. It's on the corner of where there's a body shop and the fire department. Do you know what road this is?
Okay, what's your name?
Get into the fire department.
What's your name?
Do you know what road this is? Laura Lendell Road.
What?
It's Laura Lendell Road.
Okay, and what did the female say to you?
And she says that her stepfather is killing everybody in her house. I did. I'm on the phone with them right now.
Did you say how or what was happening?
I asked her to get in the car with me, and she said she couldn't leave her family. But I think she ran to the fire department.
So she went to the fire station. What did she look like?
She's probably a young teenager, probably like 16 maybe, with long blonde hair. And she has a black dog.
Did she say anything about a baby?
I don't know about no baby. She said she just couldn't leave her family. But I see her car running around. I'm sorry?
Did you see anything from the house?
So I drove down the road a little bit, so I was afraid that I was going to get shot myself since I interacted with her face to face. So I'm just about maybe 3 houses down. But she's like waiting at the corner. I don't know what she's doing, but I kind of still see her in the corner. But I saw a car kind of came around and whipped around. So I'm not exactly sure if that's him or if he's chasing her or not. I'm sorry?
What kind of vehicle was it?
I saw it. It was like a gray. Did you see that car whip around? It's one of the fire department guys.
Okay.
I think maybe a fire department guy. It was a regular kind of Focus-looking gray car.
Okay, we have help on the way. Thank you.
Dark gray. Okay, all right.
Call us back, okay, and steer clear of the area at this time.
Okay. They said stay it clear from the area.
Yeah,
But I think even then, that's the house right there.
Oh, are you inside where you're safe?
I'm standing outside where I can see the lady.
Okay.
I'm across the street at Lindale Automotive.
Can you tell how many people have been shot?
I think 2 children
Okay. All right. What was
that
your
I've
name,
seen.
sir?
My name is.
What's your last name? All right. We've got help on the way. If you could just try to stay inside so that you're safe.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So that was actually 2 911 calls. The first one we heard was the passerby who had stopped and talked to Alexis as she was running away. And the second was a neighbor who actually saw the little boys shot on the ground. So back to the unfolding crime. Laura was able to pick Chase up, and that's when Chad and Laura got into a physical fight. They engaged in the physical altercation over the child, during which Chad attempted to pull Chase away from Laura's grasp, who was trying to save her youngest son. And honestly, do not mess with a mama bear, because about the only thing that can stop them from protecting their young is a gun. She did everything possible, in my opinion. Chad even went so far as to bite her to get her to let Chase go. But Laura still fought during the altercation. Laura grabbed the firearm, placing her thumb over the barrel, and that's when Chad shot Laura through the thumb. She ultimately dropped Chase during this chaos. Chase was ultimately shot 4 times and laid in the same area as his brothers on the side of the residence. After Chad executed all 3 boys, he sat on the side stoop of the residence and calmly watched Laura try her best to perform life-saving measures on her 3 children. She was screaming, "You took my life from me." Around 4:15 p.m., Laura called 911 and said that her husband shot her little boys. We have not heard this 911 call yet, but we heard that call made by the passerby who spoke with panicking Alexis. Obviously, Laura has suffered serious physical harm as well. Obviously, when Laura was shot through her thumb and the bite and other injuries from the physical fight she undertook trying to protect Chase, not to mention the serious trauma she's endured and will endure. So when the police responded to the home, they found Chad sitting on his doorstep, calmly smoking a cigarette with his white rifle laid beside him, while his wife was still trying to render aid to her children. Laura was heard crying and screaming at Chad as he sat basically just ignoring her and ignoring the demands of the police to lay down on the ground. The body cam footage is chilling as it shows how calm Chad actually is. If you haven't seen it, there's going to be a link in the show notes. Go watch it. One epic part of the body cam footage is as one officer is escorting Chad to the police vehicle, Chad is talking away, asking questions and whatnot, and the officer says, "You have the right to remain silent. Now fucking use it."
Can you get the wallet out of my back pocket? Shut up, dude. You have the right to remain silent and fucking use it.
A total mic drop moment for this cop. Good for him, really. Chad made multiple statements to law enforcement such as, "I did it, take me to jail. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have shot them." So that's where his confession comes from right there. And we will ultimately see these videos of his confession eventually. I believe Chad also gave a statement during an audio and video recorded interview during which he have been thinking about shooting his sons since October. During the interview, he said that the thought of having to kill his sons was so heavy on him that he hadn't slept for 3 or 4 days prior to murdering his kids. So why did Chad come up with this plan for the crime nearly 9 months before? I'm not a psychiatrist, but to me, it sounds like maybe a bipolar or even schizoaffective disorder where one has the mood disorder of highs and lows, but they also have an underlying schizophrenia diagnosis. But when bipolar people are in a manic state, they can go days without sleeping, which can induce psychosis. So this is just a theory of mine. It's probably holds absolutely no water, but things I've seen in my life, it sounds like that. Because even when somebody who's in a manic episode not sleeping and they've gone into psychosis, the things that they say and do don't make sense to us, but to them it does, and they can often appear calm and lucid. And I'm not saying that Chad was chillingly like just calm. He was obviously elevated in some way, but he knew exactly what he was saying. It doesn't mean it made sense. It just means that don't automatically dismiss psychosis or something underlying going on here. But that's stuff that we're going to find out later on during the trial. Chad's father, Keith, made a statement basically saying that although he's angry at his son for what he did, he believes that something must have made Chad snap and that this is out of character for his son. About 10 years ago, Chad was charged with domestic assault after he allegedly tried to strangle his dad. The charges were dropped by authorities though, and from what I understand, it was dropped because Keith didn't show up to court. I just want to point out that this information, coupled with statements made by Chad's neighbors saying that Chad was angry all the time, that he constantly yelled at and belittled his wife, could show a pattern of behavior. We say it all the time that you never know what goes on behind closed doors, but if this is what the neighbors heard from the outside, to me, I don't think it's a stretch to say the home could have been a volatile place. Not all domestic abuse cases are physically violent. There are also stories about Chad threatening to slit the throat of a neighbor's dog. So it seems to me like maybe Chad was an aggressive guy, to say the least. At his arraignment, there was a point that we see Chad start to break down and cry. He catches himself fairly quickly and composed himself. But many people said that this was remorse, or he is upset that he's in jail now. But for me, directly before Chad appears to break down, the prosecutor calls Chad and his actions cowardly. Chad gives the prosecutor a quick look. It's not even a glance, but it's a look at the prosecutor, and then immediately breaks down. I read that as rage. Some of us cry when we're angry, and being called a coward incited rage in Chad. This is, again, my opinion, and it's based on someone in my past and their reaction to being called out in a way that they feel is disrespectful. I said, I'm not a doctor. That's just how I took it. Just, how dare you call me a coward type of reaction. So Chad was indicted on 21 counts. So we have 3 murder victims and 1 assault victim. How does that add up to 21 counts? Basically, we have the 3 murders, and the reason that you have all of these counts is that the prosecutor is trying to cover himself to make sure that when he goes to trial, he's allowed to argue to the jury multiple theories of the murder. The jury can come back with one of those theories on guilty or guilty on all of those theories, and the prosecutor just didn't want to take the chance. Let's break it down. On the indictment, we have 3 counts. Counts 1, 2, and 3 is aggravated murder. This is what you normally think of as premeditated murder. That means you plan it or carry it out. It doesn't have to be like a long planning period. It can be just as long as, you take a shot and you reload your gun. That short amount of time is premeditation. It doesn't have to be that long of a premeditation. Making a conscious decision to commit murder can have a very short period of time. I've even heard of prosecutors argue that someone's in a fight and both people have a knife and there's one stab, and the person lifts his arm and does a second stab wound. The second stab wound is the one that causes the death. Now we've got premeditated murder. Counts 4, 5, and 6 are felony murder. Remember, we learned in the Delphi case that felony murders are when a murder happens during the commission of another felony, and in this case, the felony is kidnapping, which means you're restraining someone or preventing someone from getting away or preventing their freedom of movement. By doing that, you are kidnapping that person. And if a person dies as a result of that, then it's felony murder. The next theory of the prosecution on counts 7, 8, and 9, which refers to a specific statute in Ohio that if you purposely murder a child 13 years old or younger, that it becomes an aggravated murder. It doesn't have to be premeditated. It doesn't have to be a felony murder. It's just somebody that's murdering somebody 13 years or younger. The next counts, 10, 11, and 12 are 13. 4 counts of kidnapping. So now we might think, why do they have 4? A lot of people have forgotten that Laura was also a victim of kidnapping. The 3 murder victims, the 3 little boys, were kidnapped, but also their mother was restrained. The mother was kidnapped, and therefore we have 4. So the next 4 counts, 14, 15, and 16, are kidnapping during the course of a felony, obviously similar to the felony murder. In order to facilitate this kidnapping, a murder was committed. So the aggravated murder is the felony being committed during the kidnapping, and the prosecutor is allowed to argue that this is a kidnapping during the course of a commission of a felony. Then you've got felony assault. In this case, the mom is assaulted, bitten, and shot in the hand with a gun, the 3 children and the mother, so that's what that is. Those counts are assaulting somebody with the use of a gun. The Judge Ferentz, granted a gag order and has set the next court date for September 22nd, 2023. Chad has pleaded not guilty. What a monster. This will likely be an insanity plea at some point, would be my best guess. Now, how does he plead not guilty when there's reportedly confessions? But really, like outside of a bad confession, meaning it was coerced or that he was under the influence or something, there's no other explanation. There are certain not guilty pleas that you could admit the wrongdoing or committing the acts without being culpable for the murders. So, like, he could be found not guilty by reason of insanity or some similar statute. He could be found not guilty because of self-defense, which obviously is not the case here. So we're just going to have to wait and see what the outcome of the trial is, or if he makes a plea or whatever. But basically, that's what we know so far. Another bookmark is needed here, and I will keep you posted on any and all updates. So until the next episode, guys, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast and joining our Facebook page. If you have any requests or suggestions for cases, you can send them to us at truecrimestorypod@gmail.com or on Facebook or Facebook Messenger. Until the next time, take care, guys. Bye.